3, 2. So, here we are. First off, thank you so much for taking time to watch this. Before we get going, let me set the stage for what is going to happen on this channel and what I'm going to do with these videos. For starters, obviously, I'm going to be digging in and retelling the stories and basically how I created MetsBlog.com, which eventually grew into the most popular team sports blog online at that time. I'll post interviews with reporters and former players, friends, to add a little bit of context to those stories. Also, I'll occasionally post, a 30,000 foot view opinion of what's going on at that moment with the Mets. And I'm going to try to start a podcast with someone to basically catch up with what's going on with this team, because the fact is, over the past year or so, I've needed a break. I think a lot of people took one. I know I did. And I feel a little bit out of the loop, and I need to kind of catch myself up on the nitty-gritty of what's going on with these guys. But be clear, the goal of the MetsBlog stories isn't necessarily to shit on people or reveal some people's dirty little secrets or go off on crazy tirades. Though I wouldn't be surprised if I get a little hot. I know you know me, most people do, for being pretty vanilla, pragmatic, indecisive, middle of the road, wishy-washy, that said, for what it's worth, those sort of things. Quiet, rarely blasting people. Funny thing is, while that might happen, people who really know me, that have talked to me offline, just socially, they know that I curse a lot. I could get a little crazy, I can be a little aggressive. Especially when people are attacking me or, I start operating with a chip on my shoulder, I tend to get a little bit much. Ordinarily, I keep these qualities pretty quiet because MetsBlog was a blog. It was a journal. They started being called web blogs for a reason. And when writing, it was usually at the end of thinking about something. I tend to, when something was going on with the team, I would listen to a lot of opinions. I would read a lot of opinions. I would talk to a lot of people. And then I would write after a lot of thinking. And so my writing was pretty level-headed, pretty pragmatic. And so I think that was sort of the brush I was painted with. But again, people behind the scenes, I would get a little crazy. Specifically when challenged or as it pertained to the business of MetsBlog, when I was told I couldn't do something or, people would get in my face and tell me that it wasn't possible, I didn't know what I was doing, I was in over my head, that's kind of when the switch would flip. And then I'd kind of lose my shit, because in the beginning of MetsBlog, it was really just something I did for fun. It was a project that I started. There were a lot of inspirations, specifically Brian Hoke, who went on to write for MLB.com, now covers the Yankees, and I'll get into a lot of that in future videos. But it wasn't until after that when people started noticing what I was doing. People like executives with the Mets, within MLB, reporters, columnists, editors at other newspapers, radio hosts. It wasn't until they started slamming the door in my face. It wasn't until they started telling me I didn't know what I was doing, or that I was doing journalism wrong, telling me that by doing what I was doing, I'd never make it in this business. It wasn't until then that I started writing the site with a mission. My first objective was always you. It was to use my time doing the research so that you could go to your meeting or your little kid's Little League game or go to class, do whatever, and you'd come back to MetsBlog and I would tell you what was good, what wasn't, here's what I think, and then send you on your way. Remember, back then, kind of like it is today, frankly, there was so much information. There were so many places to get content, as they would eventually start calling it, and so many different ways to get it that people didn't understand how to get it. Newspapers were just starting to publish online. Podcasts were just starting. WFAN wasn't even streaming yet. I had to sit in my car because when I started the site, we were down in Washington, D.C. I'd have to sit in my car and put on 660 and get static, very little, the best I could, keep moving my car from parking spot to parking spot just to pick up the signal to know what was going on in the game and listen to the post-game press conference and those things. It's not like it was streaming online, and there certainly were no apps or smartphones. Plus, there were probably 40, 50, maybe even 60 different Mets blogs at the time. In other words, as long as you came to MetsBlog and my work first, it didn't matter to me where you went after that. And this is what most old school team PR people, old school reporters, editors, and whatnot, this is what they didn't understand. I didn't want to succeed in their business. I wanted to change their business. And I did. Of course, just as I did it to them, a new crop of people did it to me. They changed the industry, and it nearly killed me in the process. So here I am telling you about it. And sincerely, thank you for joining me on this run. The plan is to post 1 or 2 of these each week, walking you through the crazy stories, the ups, the downs, the fun times, the thought processes, the deals, the arguments, the lectures I got, the lectures I gave, the threats, the nastiness, the friendships I made, the people I pissed off, and of course, the people I'm forever grateful to for all of the help that I got in making the site a success. And that's really it. That's what these videos are going to be about. Oh, and I should also mention that at the end of these, I'll post a video to a link from the past. Usually something funny or noteworthy, because I think it's kind of fun to look back on things, not just talk about it. For instance, this one, Matt and Ted Go to Philly, it's a classic to me. You definitely want to check it out. So go, click on it. Do it. Trust me, you won't regret it. And of course, thank you, and let's go Mets.